Hello, thank you. And, no, don't go anywhere. There's only one more talk left like this one. And you know what, actually, you're missing out because there's already queue for the coffee. So please stay with me and we'll have a break in a short time. So a bit of a dark pattern here. Sorry, booking. So, hello. It is great to be here. Thank you very much for having me. I'm not very good at talking about myself, so I prepared a few numbers. You already heard about 15 years of experience. It will be important because I've worked in agencies as a front-end developer, in consultancies, and on the product side. And I dealt with a problem about, in speaking about visual design or aesthetics and stuff like that with various types of stakeholders. And I also teach and lecture on SWPS University and AGH. I think I had a pleasure to meet with at least 900 people along the way. And if there are any students of mine here, hi, hello, great to see you. 2 is the number of kids I have. So I'm a bit stressed today because young kids and COVID means that I haven't been participating in any conference whatsoever in, I think, in 5 years. And 23 is actually the degrees that we have outside, and I really like this kind of a temperature, so that's a fun fact about me. Okay, on with the show. Because we are talking about visual design and UI design, it probably makes sense to define it. So I asked ChatGPT to define the UI design for me. It said, go to Midjourney, and Midjourney gave me all of that crap. So I just I said no, thank you. Can we stop arguing about what's the difference between UX and UI and all that stuff and be a bit more strategic about that? And there's one tiny picture. I'm not that illiterate in how you can see the pictures. It's just so bad that I don't want you actually to see it. So my definition about UI design and visual design is actually quite simple. It is this thing that happens after you have designed your interactions and before any development starts. So a cherry on top. Sometimes a thing that is overlooked or we don't have enough time for. But this is the part I'm talking about today. And of course, product design covers a lot of more of that scope. There are UI engineers now, and all those changes happen because a lot of visual UI knowledge, interactions knowledge, and information architecture knowledge commoditized across the different years. And I forgot to switch my notes here, so yeah, why not? But you're still with me here. Okay. No, I need my notes. I'm old. I forget sometimes. Okay, so I want to provide you with an answer to one important question. How do we talk about visual design with stakeholders? And give me a few minutes to give you the answer. So, first of all, if you come to your product manager or a stakeholder and you want to talk about the curvature of buttons or the color tokens or the spacings or the typography, they will basically pull some kind of a quadrant or matrix just to make sense out of reality, and they might pull out an Eisenhower Matrix that basically allows you to qualify something in terms of urgency and importance. And you know what? If Eisenhower was your PM, he would basically say no, delete that. We don't want that on the roadmap. We have so much more important stuff to handle than the curvature of your buttons, whatever they are. So yeah, often this is what happens to visual aspects or aesthetics of a lot of products and a lot of our work. And there's actually a real reason for this to happen, because actually the visual design is really not that important in the end. With all the problems with a lot of products, it is sometimes more important to handle all that stuff that comes before the cherry on top. You need a cake to put that cherry on top. And in the end, all the time, usable but ugly will win over useless and very pretty. So there's this weird paradox, because although people say they love and like nice things, and although we care about them deeply, there's actually really hard to say why the visual side is so important. And I think if you're working especially at product companies, you need to feel this paradox and understand that paradox a bit and know how to navigate it. So, but in the end, a small disclaimer. I want to believe, and now there's a gut feeling I need to check. How many of you get that as a reference to X-Files? Can you raise your hand? Yes, I'm very old. This is what I thought. Okay, but I still want to believe that craft is really important in our work. It makes sense to be obsessed over details, typography, colors, and all that stuff if you're dealing with UI design, for sure. And I love obsessing about those things when I work as well. But you need to know when to obsess about it and when not to obsess about it. And because I make every talk that I have at conferences a bit of a challenge for myself also to systemize my knowledge or synthesize what I think about things, I also created a threefold way to explore what is the context for UI design I do or visual problems that I try to solve. And it comes in the form of, first, a triangle that basically puts all the interfaces or products or types of audiences that like things that are neutral, or products that are more related to trends and need to follow those trends, or products that are more niche and usually very specific for a very specific target audience. Why it is important? It is important because if you are dealing with a design system at a huge product, it probably means that your basic visual language is very neutral. So it can stay like that for a long time, and you can actually appeal to a lot of people. If you're designing something that needs to be trendy, like a Web3 or app, there needs to be a lot of gradients and stretched out typography, so just people know that this is actually a Web3 thing. And usually trends are also fueled by changes in technology and what technology allows us to do. Like 10 years ago, no one would thought about dynamic gradients on the websites because we couldn't do it actually without a ton of images. And there are also products that are super niche. So they can be like that for a long time, but they are very specific for a very specific audience. And the visual language needs to be a very specific as well. I think about websites for architect studios and BTS fans maybe as well. If there are any BTS people here, please, I love BTS. Do not chase me down. Understanding the nature of the product or character of the product is really important because trendy and niche products are usually more specific in terms of the visual language. Things that are neutral or niche are usually have a longer lifespan of the visual language, and the neutral or trendy things have usually a broader appeal. So that's one thing to understand about your product. The second thing, which is a bit more complicated because we live in a complicated world, is understanding the organization and operations of your company or your team or whatever project you are dealing with. And here we can have a visual language that is ad hoc or more structured. Of course, structured means design systems. And we can have them quite simple or quite complex, and they can be either owned by us or shared across multiple teams. So if you are dealing with something that you own is very ad hoc and simple, that might mean that you are talking about your personal website, and I wish you luck in figuring out what font to use and what's the curvature of the button, because that's the most difficult stakeholder to have, our own internal voice about design choices. And if you're dealing with a very complex system that is well structured, like a very robust design system us in booking, let's say, that is shared across many different teams, it will be a totally different strategy in terms of addressing and talking about the visual design. And last but not least, depending on the size of the project and the scope of the project and the nature of that project, there will be also visual things that are more or less dependent on other things. So let's say a typography and colors and icons and geometry and ornamentation and assets are pretty easy to change, and you can do it on your own. But there are also things that require engineering resources or more people to contribute to the changes you want to do to the UI or the visual language to actually make it happen. And you need to understand how the visual changes you are trying to do, how they are connected to all the dependencies, especially in the large organization. And sometimes everything is dependent on someone else or something else, and you can only change assets like an image that pops up on the blog post. And this is fine as well. You just need to understand in what type of situation you are finding yourself. And in today's world, you need to show the value. So the value is the new money for the business. Everyone talks about value, how we bring value to the customers and how we bring value to the business. And to show value in the context of visual design or UI design, we need to do one of the two things, or the best two things. First of all, we need to name the value that the UI design or visual design provides. And here I have a story about one of customers of Grafana where I work, which is a tool that allows you to visualize observability type of data. So everything that the IT infrastructure or cloud environments generate to understand how they are doing. And Grafana is known for being like open source. Probably if you work in a big organization and if you go to your admin IT department or SREs or DevOps, someone is using Grafana there. And it is also known for a great appeal that people say that they really like Grafana. And once I was talking to one of the customers in a 7-number type of a organization, like organization that brings us 7-number digits every year. And we were talking about like what are the pain points and all that stuff. And at some point, that person mentioned that he actually likes Grafana because it is so beautiful. And yeah, I could have just noted down and go to my boss and say like, you know what, we need to invest in visual language of Grafana because people say it's beautiful. But why it still matters? Being beautiful is not a value. So I asked, why do you say it matters to you that Grafana is beautiful? And the story I've heard was that there's a ton of work that the IT department faces, a lot of choices about the infrastructure. Some of those choices cost like a great money to the organization. And the admins and SREs and the DevOps people are constantly pitching things to their stakeholders. And that person told me that he likes that Grafana is beautiful because when he is in the meeting talking about databases and talking about cardinality of data and all that weird stuff, everyone is on their phones, but the moment they pull up a screenshot with a dashboard, everyone is like paying attention. So the value of a nice interface for that customer is that we enable to his work and his narration to get noticed in an organization. And that's a very important thing because there is no better way to be a tool than to be something that you think that enables you to do your work and to be heard. So name it. And the second approach is to quantify it. And there are two flavors on quantifying things in terms of visual language. You can attach it to already existing metrics, like a Snowflake had yesterday a great talk about how they're associating the UI with the customer satisfaction and the NPS. You can believe in an NPS or not. If it is in your organization, it means that that is a metric you can refer to. And the second approach, if you're willing to do and if you have like a power to do it, you can just basically measure it yourself. Because within the UX research field, there are standardized questionnaires that are really well researched and reliable that allows you to actually quantify how people perceive your product and does it fit the trendiness or niche environment that you work within, and what attributes people associate in terms of aesthetics with your product, because it might be important. Tomek Skórski, who is doing a podcast Nie Tylko Design and has a website skórski.net, told me that he worked on Attract Div, and he told me to tell you that if you want to learn more about that, to just like write him an SMS or phone him, he will give you all the answers. So like please do if you want. So how do we actually talk about visual design with stakeholders? Now is time for a big reveal about the answer. And the answer is very simple. We just don't. Like, never bore people with the curvature of buttons and the typography and the colors and all that stuff. This is a space safe to have those conversations around designers, in your teams, with yourself, when you're obsessing about stuff. But when you are going outside of your design team and talking to engineers, PMs, or your stakeholders, always trying to associate visual aspects with a value that it brings to customers or to the business. Because only then people will care. And that value, you can name it, you can quantify it, but you need to show the value. And this is like a me old person talking to you about all the failures that I had in like pitching, changing the font in my products for over 15 years. So, in the end, the value is really important. There are different types and names for the values that you might have. One important point, when business is talking about customer value, they are actually talking about business value, but they just want to be more focused on customers in the end, because they just know there's the direct correlation. Not all the businesses know that yet, but if they do, they will say customer value when they actually think business value. And in terms of business, they only care about 5 things. More revenue, more new business from existing customers, more new customers, lowering of the cost, and that's basically it. So if you can associate changes in your UI to the maintenance cost, except design debt, no one cares about the design debt, then that's a go. If you can talk about efficiency, this is the year of efficiency, so talk about investment in the UI or a design system, because it will bring efficiency to your organization as well. And if you can associate that with a brand equity, do it as well, because this is related to the 5th element that business cares about, and this is raising equity for the stakeholders. Of course, this doesn't apply to Twitter/X, because now it's a private company, no stakeholders, so you can basically throw away 15 years worth of a brand, basically. So know your context. And sometimes you just need to let go. Sometimes you just need to stop obsessing about the curvature of the button. It doesn't tell anything about you as a person. You can care deeply about the curvature of a button, but launch things that have a bad curvatures of the buttons. It doesn't matter. It took me 3 years at Grafana to finally switch from Roboto to Inter, which is far better font for our purposes. I can wait 3 more years to see tabular numbers instead of the regular ones. I'm fine with that. Let go. Sometimes it's not worth obsessing about those things or talking about those things with stakeholders. And when you fail, or when you let go, remember to retrospect and learn about what you did wrong in terms of your communication, or what didn't work in terms of your communication, and remember that it might be related to the character of the product, the dimensions you're dealing with, and the dependencies. Maybe you were unsuccessful in changing the font in your product because there were just too many dependencies, and you freaked out 3 front-end squads that they they will now have to deal with a new font on top of their roadmap and the items they are dealing with at the moment. And in the end, as Werner Herzog says in his 24 rules of filmmaking, maneuver and mislead, but always deliver. But always deliver. If you deliver your work, and if you do this cherry on top with your work, at some point somebody will notice. And then you will be able to push your visual language and UI design to the next level. And with this, I want to thank you very much. I hoped you obsessed about the crazy details of the Clavo font here designed by Michał Jarociński and all those nice little touches there. And yeah, thank you very much for having me. Pleasure.
Thank you.
Here.
What an energy.
And at the end, if you want to talk with me about any stuff that I talked here, or you have a different experiences, or you think that I just talked nonsensical things, please approach me. Happy to discuss all the details. It was a power talk, so no room for too many details. Thank you very much.